If you thought the Twitter feud between President Trump and Kellyanne Conway's husband was going away anytime soon, think again. George Conway retweeting all kinds of new attacks against the president today, including suggesting that Trump is mentally unstable. This comes as Kellyanne Conway is once again siding with her boss over her husband.
My husband also has been very critical of the president publicly, which is unlike him, just because he's traditionally been a very private person. In 2016, which was known as the year of the tweet, George Conway sent exactly 0 tweets. So this is new. And what also is new is not supporting the agenda of the president and my work there. I was raised, though, in a household of strong Italian Catholic women who taught me that you air grievances like that in private, so it is very surprising to see it be so public.
So this is so interesting to me because, I mean, it's like an addition. We should start a show. I think you said this yesterday called The Conways or something. It's unbelievable. But if it's real, what Kellyanne said to Maria Bartiromo was, she's never really addressed this with her husband. They've only talked about it in passing. Meanwhile, George Conway says, oh, he gets the tweeting out so he doesn't have to scream at his wife. What do you make of this, then?
Well, in my notes for this block, as you can see, I literally just drew what is a dumpster fire right there. Okay. I think it would probably be best for if someone doesn't want a topic to be covered, that they just refrain from speaking about it. I think the more content put out by all 3 of those parties is unfortunate, and it's distracting from larger issues at hand and also their credibility.
Jesse, he says some really strong things about the president, you know, whack job, and he's a narcissist, antisocial. He puts out all kinds of psychiatric diagnoses for people to read about the president. And I just wonder, you know, how does this impact people who are Trump fans? What do they think of it?
Well, he should look in the mirror. I mean, talk about psychologically imbalanced. I don't know what this guy's up to. I like your new hand movements. This was very Beto-esque. This was a new one. I've never seen that before. It was mesmerizing.
I think you call it milking the goat.
Okay. But like Emily, I just don't have a lot to say about their marriage. It's a private matter, and now it's spilled out to the public, and it looks humiliating for everybody involved. But I would say Kellyanne Conway is handling it gracefully. She's a very intelligent woman, a very passionate woman for the president, and I hate to see her embarrassed by this. It looks like George might have Trump derangement syndrome, and maybe he's angling for a CNN contributorship. I don't know what's going on. I kind of don't want to know what's going on, and I hope we could all move on.
Right. So, Dana, as this is taking place, the president's feud with the Republican Party, it seems, over John McCain continues. And it's almost like people are saying, well, you know what, we don't like that. Johnny Isaac.
I think the president's feud is with John McCain, and there have been... I don't think the other people in the Republican Party are not feuding with the president about that. Some of them, like Congressman Dan Crenshaw, are saying, please, Mr. President, just stop it. Like, he's not your political enemy. Like, move on. On the Conway stuff, one thing I think about this is, I agree, I wish we didn't know, but here's the thing. George Conway wants us to notice. He's poking the bear. And I don't understand to what desired outcome. Right, so what do you want to happen? Like, you're not the first to say the president has narcissistic personality disorder. What do you think you're going to accomplish that you're going to be able to do that nobody else is able to do by saying the same thing? Like, what do you want? Do you want to make life harder for your wife at the White House? Do you think it doesn't affect her at the White House? Do you want President Trump to be able to paint you as a worse husband than he? I mean, this is an incredible situation that I wish we could just not talk about it.
I think she said he would like her to stop, to leave the job.
I don't know. I must have missed that.
All right. So, Greg, what do you think?
I disagree with you. I love every minute of it.
I know you do.
I want it to keep going. You know, it's interesting. We always talk about this being like a reality show. Trump has been able to combine a whole bunch of different shows because it's like a soap opera with a lot of subplots. You know, it's like a Farrelly Brothers version of Falcon Crest. First, Trump is basically J.R. Ewing, right? But then Pence, he's Ned Flanders, right? He's Ned Flanders. Bolton is obviously Matlock. And then Kelly and her husband, they could be kind of like the Furleys from Three's Company, but he's more like Newman. And, of course, Brian Stelter is Costanza, always complaining about the better-looking people over at Fox News. And I understand that. But the thing is, the real development here is that we are talking about it. This was going on for a while. So it's kind of moving towards a resolution,
right.
and I'm dying to. I can't wait to see what it is, how this is going to end. This is it is like Who Shot JR. We're getting to a climax.
The finale.
I can't wait for the finale. Honestly, do we need more of these?
Maybe at the finale we'll all wake up and find out it was a dream.
It was a dream. We're all in the shower.
That's Dallas.
That's a terrible dream.
That's Dallas. Husband from hell, though. I don't know who gets that title.
And a battle is brewing over voting rights in Florida after the state's Republican-controlled House approved a bill to curtail the ability of ex-felons to vote, which voters gave them in November. Now, critics are pushing back. An op-ed by the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition reading in part, quote, "In our opinion, a better approach would be to simply follow the Constitution. Let the departments who administer elections do their job. Let the courts interpret the language and focus the legislative process on making sure that newly eligible voters are empowered to live up to their potential as fully engaged citizens of our state." The authors of that piece with me now, Desmond Meade, the organization's executive director, and its political director, Neil Volz. Let me start with you, Desmond. I wonder what you thought would happen in this implementation phase. I mean, you overcame a lot. You got the amendment to pass by quite a healthy margin, and now it feels like you're having to fight again.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having us on. You know, I think what sits at the heart of this discussion is the lives of millions of people who have paid their debt to society and the will of over 5.1 million voters who voted yes on Amendment 4. And what is so significant about that was that we're talking about people from all walks of life, from all political persuasions, that came together and said that Florida should be a second chance state. And to have their will be thwarted or to not to heed to what they wanted, I think is really a misstep. You know, when we're talking about folks who have done their time, who are out trying to be productive citizens, being able to vote, I think, is a special a thing for a person who has not experienced it for quite some time.
Neil, what do you think about the legislature and basically they're saying that the implementation has to be taken care of, they're going to be responsible for these types of things. Does that hold a lot of water?
Well, Dana, again, thanks for having us on. And as somebody who's been involved in conservative politics for 20 plus years, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the idea that you have elected officials engaging in a process to pick their own voters. And I think that doesn't sit very well with people from any walk of life, any political background. And we think that there's just a better way to do this, that the voters spoke very clearly. Nearly 65% of the people supported the idea that when a debt's paid, it's paid. And the fact is, in this state, there's already a process in place that determines whether somebody's completed their sentence. And we think it would be wise to simply take those standards and move forward using those standards. We don't need to create a new government bureaucracy or spend a whole lot of money trying to jump down every possible rabbit hole that exists in this conversation. This is ultimately about people. It's not about politics.
Neil,
and we think we can move forward in a better way.
Well, if the legislature and the governor decide to go in a direction that you think is antithetical to what was passed in the amendment, what is your remedy? What's the next step?
You know, I believe that at the end of the day, you know, we have worked too hard and waited so long to get our rights restored to just allow anyone, any politician to just take it away with some legislation. So we are prepared to defend our newfound right. We are prepared to defend what's in the Constitution. And the Florida Constitution, which I must add that the language that's in that Constitution was vetted by the highest court in the state of Florida. And every Supreme Court justice unanimously approved that language.
I remember that.
And so we are prepared to defend that because guess what? It is our constitutional right now, and we do not want politicians toying with that.
And, Neil, let me ask you about this. Just yesterday, Andrew Gillum, who lost to DeSantis in the governor's race in Florida, he's going to have a new effort. He's announcing that yesterday to the New York Times, saying, Florida is tired of being a cheap date. You can't just come in when it's a presidential election and we've got a nominee and then do a few months of organizing. Republicans have been disciplined in our state in that way for 24 years, and now it's time for Democrats to do the same. And then Rick Scott, who's now Florida's senator, he said this on Fox and Friends.
Andrew Gillum, get rich people registered to vote. It's our job when you run for office to go tell people what you believe in, and they'll vote for you.
So in addition, I just wanted to get your thoughts, Neil, in addition to what you're working on, just voter registration overall in these efforts, a higher priority in Florida for both parties?
Well, gosh, I sure hope voter registration is a higher priority for both parties all across the country. As somebody who lost the ability to vote and was granted that ability by the voters and lives with real gratitude to that decision from our voters, there's no one who believes stronger than I do, or Desmond, or the people who are part of our movement, than the ability to vote. So when you talk about like next steps for us in this movement, we will continue to advocate. We will continue to outline our beliefs and what we think is best for the people who are impacted by Amendment 4. And we also will be engaged in helping people get more civically engaged, not just voting, but actually getting engaged at the local level and becoming leaders in their communities and helping transform our state.
And that gives me a chance to ask Desmond Meade a last question. Once you were on before the amendment passed. Now the amendment's passed and you're here. I know that you've got this next hurdle you're going to try to get over. And then what's next for you? What do you want to do next?
Well, my goals is really to try to see how we can take Amendment 4, the victory of Amendment 4, and how we actually won that based on love, forgiveness, and redemption, and embrace those spirits and get this country excited about being registered to vote. Get folks excited about participating in elections and being more civically engaged. As people who have lost the right to vote and have regained it, you know, we feel that we're great emissaries for the rest of the country to let them know how important your vote is, how important it is for you to get involved and hold our elected officials accountable. That's my goal for the next few years.
Well, Desmond Meade, it's great to see you again. Neil Volz, thank you both for joining us.